हेलो गाइस, आज हम करने वाले हैं हॉर्नबिल की पोएम 1 दैट इज ए फोटोग्राफ. सो लेट मी रीड द पोएम देन आई विल एक्सप्लेन यू. The cardboard shows me how it was when the two girl cousins went paddling, each one holding one of my mother's hands, and she, the big girl, some 12 years or so. All three stood still to smile through their hair at the uncle with the camera. A sweet face, my mother's, that was before I was born, and the sea, which appears to have changed less, washed their terribly transient feet. Some 20-30 years later, she would laugh at the snapshot. See Betty and Dolly, she would say, and look how they dressed us for the beach. The sea holiday was her past, mine is her laughter. Both right, with the labored ease of loss. Now she has been dead nearly as many years as that girl lived. And of this circumstance, there is nothing to say at all. Its silence silences. In this poem, the poet describes how deeply she faced the loss of her mother. Her mother has now been dead for more than 12 years. The poet recalls how her mother used to look at a photograph and remember her own childhood. When that photograph was taken, the mother was just a girl of about 12 years. The photograph shows the mother with two of her girl cousins on a sea beach. All the three girls were smiling at the uncle who was taking their photograph. The mother would show this photograph to the poet and talk of those happy days. She would laugh while talking of that sea holiday. But a great change had come in the mother by that time. She was now a middle-aged woman and had the poet as a daughter. All her former liveliness was gone. Recalling her mother, the poet says, the sea holiday was her past, mine is her laughter. The poet intensely feels the loss of her mother. She remembers how the mother used to talk to her and laugh. But now that laughter is a thing of the past. The mother has been dead for about 12 years. That poet feels very sad and lonely. She says that now she is in a situation where there is nothing to say at all. It is all emptiness of her. It has killed all feelings in her. The silence of her situation has silenced her. It is a death-like silence. So this is all in this poem. Now I will explain this poem paragraph wise. In the first paragraph, the poet is looking at a photograph. It is her mother's photograph. In it, she can see how her mother looked when she was a little girl. At that time, she was about 12 years old. The photograph shows her on a beach. She has with her two girl cousins. The cousins are younger in age. Each one is holding one of her mother's hand. It must be windy at that time. That was why their hair were flying on their faces. All three were smiling through their hair. In other words, their smiling faces could be seen under their flying hair. They were smiling at the uncle who had a camera and was taking their photograph. Looking at the photograph, the poet says that her mother had a sweet face, but it was of a time before she, the poet, was born. The three girls were standing in the sea. The sea was washing their feet. The poet says that the sea has changed little since then, but a terrible change has come about those whose feet it was washing. So now let me explain you the second paragraph. After 20 or 30 years, the mother would take out that photograph and look at it. By that time, she had been married and had the poet as her daughter. She would look at the photograph and laugh a little. She would say to the poet, "Look at Betty and Dolly. Look how they dashed us for the beach." Thus, the mother would remember that sea holiday of hers. But now, all that was a thing of the past. Now a lot had changed for the mother. She no longer had those sweet joys of her childhood. However, the poet remembers that little laughter of her mother, and for her, that laughter had become a thing of the past. Now a lot has changed for her. She can't even see that laughing face of her mother. That is why the poet says, "The sea holidays was her past, mine is her laughter." Just as the mother's face had turned grey after she had lost the innocent joys of her childhood, so too the poet's face has turned red after losing the joys of her mother's company. However, in the course of time, both of them learn to live with their loss. The poet calls this the labored ease of loss. The pain of this loss left a permanent impression on their brave faces. Now let me tell you of the third paragraph. The poet says that her mother had been dead for as many years as the girl in that photograph had lived. The poet means to say that her mother had been dead for about 12 years, and now she feels herself in such a situation that there is nothing to say about it. There is nothing but emptiness. The silence of the situation silences her. In other words, her loss has left her speechless. It had killed all feelings in her. So this was all in this poem. I hope you have understood this poem. Thank you all of you. Have a great day.